Welcome to this week's Anarchy Analysis predictions video for week 6 of the LCS and week 5 of the LEC. We've got a lot to cover and a lot of upsets in the LCS to cover this week, so let's jump straight into this video, and I am so hyped. So, game 1 this week was IMT versus Dignitas in a very important matchup for the bottom half of the table. Dig drafted a pick comp looking to pick off enemies when they could, and IMT drafted a team fight comp that has very low engage. Now, what's very important about this draft was Dardoch with his Graves went with Ignite and Smite. This is the new sort of Graves build where you go phase rush and you use the Ignite to get yourself a bit of speed with the Nimbus Cloak, and the phase rush procs with your autos, so you're going to be very quick, and realistically the flash isn't going to be needed, as you've got obviously your slide as Graves to get over walls, as well as the fact that you have that increased movement speed. Now, the game starts off with Dig having the first blood in a 3v3 duel up top lane as they dove the top lane turret and picked up the kills. Dardoch essentially then became the king of this game, controlling all of the buffs on the map, and this allowed a very dominant performance from Dignitas to take place as they continued their push and keeping the zone of IMT away, and they're keeping the control of the game as they got a 23-minute Soul and Baron. This is huge as this was a very quick game, and Dig beat IMT in a strong performance, and surprisingly I did not get this prediction right. This is the first prediction that's wrong for me as IMT lost here. Game 2 was FlyQuest versus 100 Thieves, and both teams took a different approach to this game. 100 Thieves drafted a lot of engage and poke, and FlyQuest drafted a team fighting comp that actually would work. 100 Thieves though get a 2-kill first blood, and this was via a mid gank and the response play from the FlyQuest team. Obviously the jungle comes in, and essentially the 100 Thieves side just overkill and kill 2 players for the price of none. Whereas PoE starts to get Fly in the game. He plays such a clean champion, and he was making it so that FlyQuest actually was able to play this. And essentially they get the first Drake steal in this game, and they manage to get a lot of big damage from a shockwave by PoE. 100 Thieves though managed to flank to get Baron and the third Drake after a team-wide ace for them, and from there it's pretty obvious that 100 Thieves are going to secure Soul, and when this happens they manage to run it down mid lane and win this game, beating FlyQuest in a demolition of a match. Game 2 was FlyQuest versus 100 Thieves, and both teams took a different approach to this game. 100 Thieves drafted a lot of engage and poke, and FlyQuest drafted a team fighting comp that actually would work. 100 Thieves though get a 2-kill first blood, and this was via a mid gank and the response play from the FlyQuest team. Obviously the jungle comes in, and essentially the 100 Thieves side just overkill and kill 2 players for the price of none. Whereas PoE starts to get Fly in the game. He plays such a clean champion, and he was making it so that FlyQuest actually was able to play this. And essentially, they get the first Drake steal in this game, and they manage to get a lot of big damage from a shockwave by PoE. 100 Thieves though managed to flank to get Baron and the third Drake after a team-wide ace for them, and from there it's pretty obvious that 100 Thieves are going to secure Sol, and when this happens they manage to run it down mid lane and win this game, beating FlyQuest in a demolition of a match. Up next is the Anarchy Analysis Match of the Week. It's going to be TSM on the one side, C9 on the other. If you want to know the entire game and what happened, you're going to have to check out the full game cast. That is on my channel. There'll be a link in the description. I'm sure you'll actually enjoy this one because I enjoyed this game considerably. The next game to follow this was Team Liquid versus CLG. This matchup saw Team Liquid drafting a high amount of engage as well as a lot of poke in their comp, and CLG going for a disengage poke comp so they can kind of counteract how Team Liquid were playing. And the big thing to note about this game was on the CLG side, as they have Deuce in the top lane subbing in for Ruin. Now, this game gets kicked off with Team Liquid controlling the objectives thanks to a high amount of top pressure, because in the pick and ban phase, Team Liquid did not want Deuce on a strong top lane or safe option. They wanted Impact to dominate that lane, and they went with the Shen. Team Liquid had a Shen, this Shen dominated, and what we end up seeing was First Blood was given over to a Syndra thanks to an Azir ult, and this ult essentially got Team Liquid ahead, and TL set a very high tempo with this game. They had to force the CLG hands into how they want to play this, so everything TL did was at a top-notch pace that CLG realistically could not match. And what ended up happening was Shen was pushing in the bot lane for the inhibitor, that he takes it, he gets the turret, and CLG obviously have to respond so that the Shen doesn't get to push anymore, and he isn't going to be killing the Nexus on this push. And essentially, because of this response, Shen, because he has 2 teleports in his kit, the Stand United and then the Summoner teleport, he's able to just go to the Baron with the rest of his team, and that's an easy Baron over to TL. And with that Baron, what ends up happening is TL just push in after CLG get picks to stop them from taking the quick soul, but Team Liquid still win this game, and they do it with this strong comp against, I would say, a weak CLG in this performance. Up next is another big matchup. It's going to be Dignitas versus FlyQuest, as Dignitas are rock bottom at the moment in the league, and FlyQuest are sat middle of the pack, and either team could do with this win. Now, Dignitas drafted this pick heavy / teamfight comp, and FlyQuest went for this more teamfight-y engage comp. And the big thing to note about this draft from FlyQuest was they picked a Kassadin, and Kassadin as a champion really does need to hit that power point level 16 in order to be any sort of threat in the game. Now, FlyQuest actually knows this, and they tried to get this Kassadin ahead early game by a gank mid to pick up First Blood. Successfully happens, and a bit of gold goes into the pockets of the mid laner for FlyQuest. And what ends up happening is that advantage that was gained by FlyQuest goes all the way to the other side for Dignitas, as extended 5v5 in the bot lane. It wins by Dignitas. Essentially, Dignitas win this fight out with 4 kills to pretty much nothing in terms of the fight, but Dignitas gained the gold lead and gained the advantage, though FlyQuest managed to pick off the jungle and take a Baron, but Dig aced them with this fight, and what ends up happening is they beat FlyQuest from this fight because there's no defense for them. And yeah, very impressive stuff coming out from a team at the bottom of the table and needing this win in order to actually be in contention for the 8th place playoff spot. The next game that we have to cover is TSM versus IMT, and this was a pretty big matchup for either team. TSM coming off of a loss to C9 the day before, and IMT looking to solidify why they should be considered a threat in this league. Now, TSM drafted this teamfight heavy comp, whereas IMT went for this pick comp with a lot of poke in it, and IMT played this comp to perfection, as what ends up happening, Broken Blade oversteps into the Rift Herald fight, and it gives over first blood and first turret to IMT, who take the Herald, and TSM essentially this entire game keep getting caught out by overstepping or doing something completely stupid that essentially gives so much gold over to IMT, and IMT on the edge of a win are literally pushing into TSM's base with the advantage they've accrued over this game, as a 22-minute Infernal Soul is on IMT's side. You wouldn't have expected that coming into this game, and essentially TSM ace IMT. They absolutely destroy them and get the Elder Dragon, but that's not enough, as IMT managed to catch out Doublelift in the mid lane and essentially just win the game. IMT beat TSM, and everyone who watches the LCS knows that it used to be just C9 at the top, and C9 are considered a top thing. Well, we'll break down this next game and we may not be saying that for much longer. Well, let's get into that game that was just 100 Thieves versus C9. These two teams doing battle. 100 Thieves near the bottom of the table and C9 dominant on top. And what ends up happening is 100 Thieves drafting a very strong pick comp and C9 going for an engage comp. And well, 100 Thieves get first blood as essentially Core JJ is spotted and essentially killed off for being in 100 Thieves' vision. And what happens is mid is just bursted open by 100 Thieves. They get 3 kills. They get soul point and then a turret. Yeah, you start to see that 100 Thieves are winning this game, and they're winning with a lot of power. And eventually 100 Thieves ace C9. That's something not many people would have said at the start of this split. 100 Thieves acing C9. And this gives them Clausel and the Baron in the exact same play, and the great thing about this 100 Thieves draft is they played it to perfection, as the Karma was used with the Olaf incredibly well, and Contracts on the Olaf getting revenge on his former team is super duper strong, and he just runs it down. He targets the carries. The Wukong center bot lane of C9 just gets absolutely trounced by this Olaf, as he's just able to pop Ragnarok, go through the Wukong CC, go through the center CC, and he just kills him, winning the game for 100 Thieves. And C9's first loss for this split is against 100 Thieves. The next game is Team Liquid versus Golden Guardians, our second to last matchup for this week. And Team Liquid drafted a lot of bursts. Golden Guardians drafted this scaling team comp that wanted to teamfight towards the latter half of the game. And a very strong team comp as a catch out at Drake secures first blood. But later on, TLs just steal the Drake from Golden Guardians and lose 3, giving Baron over to TL. It is very, very, very dominant here from Team Liquid this game, as they just burn down the Baron, and essentially it's a quick and easy win here for Team Liquid over Golden Guardians, a team that I thought could upset this Team Liquid. And the last game of this week was CLG versus Evil Geniuses. CLG drafting this heavy team comp style into a team comp that Evil Geniuses drafted to split push and split push hard, with the Riven pick going over to Kumo. And wow, this draft from EG is very, very dangerous if it gets to late game. That being said, a level 3 gank top line gets the Riven ahead, and EG getting first blood is a huge boost to this Riven getting to that big, massive spike in her kit being overpowered. And what ends up happening is CLG showing a lot of mid-game life as they get this game going with a lot of aggression. This is a very aggressive game, and it's how you want to see an LCS game on this caliber of competition. But a long 4v3 fight for EG gives a lot of advantage over them. But, this is a huge but, CLG get the Baron and Ocean Soul off of this play. So, the kill advantage goes over to EG, but CLG managed to secure the objectives. Now, if I am in this game, I would rather have the objectives than the kills, because they mean more and they actually will give you a bit more strength towards the late game. And essentially from there, it's more objective trading. EG trade the Baron, they get that for the Elder on CLG side, and it is very tight. And the last minutes of the game, CLG grab Baron, head for the Elder, and with POB forcing Evil Geniuses away, pushing down mid with the Baron, it gives CLG this Elder. They push for the end, no stopping them. CLG beat Evil Geniuses, and this was a barnstormer of a game. Now, with all of these games broken down, let's go over our results for this week, as we've only got one column to cover. So, let us go over these results for this week. Now, considering there's only the LCS to cover, just have a nice glimpse at the LEC ones, and now let's have a look-see at the LCS. Now, the LCS this week was full of upsets. C9 picking up their first loss, TSM losing to the bottom rated team, Dignitas picking up their first wins. It's such an upset week that we only managed to pick up 4 out of the 10, and that does take us up to a nice juicy 36 out of 50, still above the halfway by at least 11. But yeah, very good performance here by a lot of teams, and yeah, let's move over to the actual predictions for this week. So let's get into things for this week. We start in the LEC this week with Vitality versus SK. This matchup has got a lot of eyes on it, with these two teams being very, very strong against the top teams from last split in G2 and Fnatic. And well, for this one, I've actually gone with SK over Vitality. as I feel that the SK lineup with Crown Shot in that bot side map is very, very strong in comparison to the lineups that Vitality have, and considering the sort of things that have happened in Vitality over recent days, granted it's not too big of a deal, but I think SK should out-damage and outwit Vitality. We now enter our Anarchy Analysis match of the week, Schalke 04 versus Rogue. This matchup I've selected because I think this will provide the best results between these two teams we are yet to cover this split. And Schalke, since last split, have picked up their first win against Fnatic, and Rogue are dominant. They're actually near the top of the table, sat in second behind Mad, and this matchup I think will showcase these two teams' strengths. Schalke have obviously made some big changes in this off-season. They've replaced their bot lane entirely with their 10-man roster that they have got, whereas Rogue have kept the same roster from spring and are actually doing very well with them. And now, this matchup I have actually gone with Rogue over Fnatic because I think that Rogue are still the strongest team, if not the second strongest team in the league, and in my opinion should beat this Schalke team. But we'll get to Saturday or Sunday and we'll have the video, the Anarchy Analysis, game breakdown / team fight breakdown / full game cast. I'm unsure of what I'm doing then, but yeah, this should be an interesting matchup to look at. Fnatic and Misfits follow this matchup, and this one I'm unsure of how I actually want to predict this, because last time these two faced off, Misfits were actually on the verge of winning, but Fnatic beat them. And in my opinion, with this week off that's happened here, I think Fnatic are going to bounce back with a lot of strength, and in theory I think Fnatic are going to win this matchup over Misfits. Mad Lions and XL take on to the Rift, the top of the table, versus a team that's slowly on the rise in XL. This matchup, I think, is going to be a big matchup in this week. It could, in my opinion, be a upset match where XL actually win. But I've gone with Mad here over XL, purely on the fact that XL could throw. They've done it traditionally quite a lot, and considering the style they're playing with the top lane matchup, I actually think that Mad will have a way to actually beat this play. The last game on the Friday is G2 versus OG in a very big battle that has got very big playoff place contention stakes on it, and it's G2 versus OG. These two teams faced off in the first half of this split and G2 lost. This time, I honestly think G2 will bounce back. G2 with Perks at full strength should be a very, very strong lineup, and Perks is coming off a longer break than most, thanks to having 2 weeks off as he missed the last week of the first half of the split, as well as this week, which was obviously a rest week for all teams. And I think this team should be very hard to beat, and OG will have to be on their best in order to contain this G2 squad. Saturday is kicked off with SK and Schalke going to the Rift. This is probably the matchup of the week that Schalke could win. However, this SK lineup since spring have stepped up considerably. Crown Shot has been the king in that bot lane for this team. He's carried them through thick and thin. In my opinion, he's going to carry him through Schalke and win this game, hands down, keeping SK in the playoff places and in a position of power. Following on from that last matchup, we have Rogue taking on XL in a very interesting matchup, because it's kind of the battle of the top lane, as Finn, a guy that plays weak side, well, not very well as most people called it before last week, taking on a carry top laner enquires. This matchup I've gone with Rogan, though I could expect an XL upset considering their recent form has been actually quite good. It's been on the rise, but I've got to go with Rogue here. The team just looks impressive. After that, we've got Misfits taking on OG. This matchup has got playoff place contention as OG have been all over the place, similarly with Fnatic and G2. But OG have probably been the most consistent of the three, and in my opinion, they're going to get their money's worth out of Misfits here. And in my opinion, I've actually gone with Misfits here over OG. I've got a feeling that the OG bot lane is just going to get trounced, considering they're bringing in Jack Troll over Destiny for this weekend, which I didn't cover in the G2 OG matchup, but we've got Jack Troll coming in for OG. This is huge because it's an untested bot lane and the synergy might not be there against a team who's got Kobe and DOS. Granted, DOS has been a bit iffy here and there on certain champions that he's played, but Kobe is Mr. Consistent. This bot lane, it should be a very interesting matchup and probably should be classed as a match of the week, similarly with the G2 OG, an untested bot lane versus a revitalized bot lane. So you can see why that one has big implications, similarly with this one. The second to last matchup for this week is Vitality taking on Fnatic, and this matchup is very interesting because I do believe Fnatic lost to Vitality in the first half of the split, and Vitality have done very well against top teams of Spring. And this matchup, I have though gone with Fnatic. I think that the revitalized team, or the team that's had the time off like Fnatic who's needed it, are going to come back stronger than ever. They're going to adapt to this current meta a little bit more and a bit better than what I think Vitality will, and as a whole I think this should be a Fnatic match. And the last matchup in the LEC this week is a matchup I do believe kicked off this split, G2 versus Mad. This matchup, in my opinion, is pretty much do or die. This is probably the biggest test this weekend that G2 is going to face. The team that's in first currently in Mad are going to go up against the team that should be in first, to everyone's opinion, in G2. And for this one, I've actually gone with G2. Even though I do like predicting Mad as a winner, I think G2 should win this, because this team should, on paper, win. And in the LCS, we kick things off with a matchup that was very, very interesting the last time these two faced off. It ended with a Bjergsen backdoor, TSM versus 100 Thieves. This matchup, I have gone with TSM. I think with Treat subbing in, this bot lane for TSM is untested, but when you've got Doublelift by the side of Treats, ADC who's played with TSM for a long time in the Academy League, a guy that's deserved the breakthrough onto the top tier roster, this matchup, it's gotta go with a TSM win. And I think this will be a big step up if TSM win, because Treat deserves this sort of place in the LCS, and if it's on TSM, this is going to be huge. And then we get into the Friday Night League matchup that's considered the main event. It's EG versus Team Liquid. This matchup, in my opinion, is going to be quite close. These two are vying for the second place. Team Liquid are currently sat in it, and they're one game behind C9, only dropping 2 games this split. And in my opinion, I don't think they're going to drop this game at all to EG, who honestly struggled through this split in comparison to last. They're sitting in 3rd or 4th, but they're not too confident considering the recent form. And yeah, this should be an interesting matchup. Moving on to Sunday now, we have CLG taking on Dignitas in a very interesting matchup yet again. Dig still at bottom table, but have picked up wins this weekend, and CLG, who have struggled over recent weeks, and in my opinion, I think CLG will win this. With Deuce coming in, I think that CLG have made a big enough change, considering POB is carrying this CLG team, and when he's got working pieces like Wiggly with him, setting him up to carry, the CLG team actually does well, and they just need to get POB on a big carry to deal with Dignitas, whom as a whole have struggled, but are picking up wins with Dardoch subbing into the jungle. But I've got to go with CLG here over Dig, though I could expect a Dignitas win here. Probably the toughest 2 games for EG happening in this week as they take on C9 in their other matchup, and well, I've got to give it to C9. Yes, they did lose to 100 Thieves last weekend, and that does create a winning formula against them, but I don't think EG have that formula. I think C9 are drastically superior to EG and should be beating them hands down. And now we get into TSM's biggest test this week with the new lineup as they take on FlyQuest, a team that beat them in the spring playoffs and in the most recent matchup in the summer split. I forget if it's week 4 or not. It's actually week 3, I think, that they beat them, but I think this matchup is gonna go to FlyQuest here over TSM. I just don't think TSM can beat Fly at the moment, and the way that TSM have been actually playing, it honestly is a team that FlyQuest will do very well against because of the playstyles. Following on from that matchup, we have Golden Guardians and IMT rounding out Saturday. And well, my opinion for this matchup is it could go either way, considering this is our Anarchy Analysis match of the week. Yeah, we may be doing a team breakdown for this one because I think this matchup could be huge, and as a whole, these 2 teams are on different pathways, they're playing different styles, and IMT, since the start of the split, look completely different to what they do now. This lineup have actually changed around everything. Beating TSM last week shows to everyone that they're on the up and up, and this matchup should be theirs to take, as I think that the changes that they've done have made this team an unbeatable lineup. Moving on to our last day, which is a Sunday, we have 100 Thieves taking on Team Liquid. This matchup, in all honesty, is a matchup that I think 100 Thieves will lose. Reason being is Team Liquid's playstyle just completely demolishes the way that 100 Thieves have been playing. Yes, they brought in Contracts, but he gets countered quite hard by Broxer. Broxer makes more proactive plays, he's more effective at objective taking and controlling the map than Contracts, and as a whole, Team Liquid with Tactical have looked far better than what they did in spring, and I think that they're not going to lose here. It's time for the second go round of the spring final rematch as FlyQuest have probably their toughest week in probably the entirety of the split as they face off against C9. This matchup I've got to go with C9 over Fly because I think C9 should beat them here because they've had one wobble this entire split. I don't think they'll be giving away another to anyone, and the next another probably will be at 1 game in playoffs, but that's going to be it. I've got to go with my boys C9. IMT versus CLG is a matchup that could be very, very interesting. I think this week will be IMT's first 2-0 week this split. They're going to beat CLG in my opinion, and don't get me wrong, I think CLG will put up a fantastic fight here. Stixay and POB have just been the solo carries for this team and have kept CLG in the running for the 6th, 7th and 8th playoff spot, but I think IMT, this is their turnaround this split, and I think they're going to beat this CLG lineup. And the last matchup for this week sees Dignitas and Golden Guardians on the Rift. This one is yet again another close matchup after recent form. I, however, think that Golden Guardians are going to win this one, even though Dig have looked far better since the changes they've made. I just think that Golden Guardians just might pip him here. They're going to have some crazy strat with Haunter, and I think that crazy strat's going to win them this game. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for this video. If you've enjoyed it, leave a like down below, subscribe if you're new around here, and if you want to, and I will see you guys later. Peace out.